Tom had made his choice. After years of drowning in the chaos of the city, with its noise and pressure, he had decided to leave it all behind. The suburban streets, the crowded highways, and the endless rush of life no longer appealed to him. He sought peace, and so, he found it in a small, quiet town nestled between the woods. A new home for a new start. Max, his loyal golden retriever, trotted beside him through the tall grass, tail wagging, always happy, always there. Tom knew that Max was more than just a pet. Max was family. Max was never far from Tom. In the city, he had always been Tom's anchor, the one who never judged, the one who understood without words. Now, in the calm of the countryside, Max was Tom's constant companion, his protector. Whether it was a walk through the woods or a lazy afternoon on the porch, Max was there, by his side, keeping a watchful eye over Tom. His sharp senses and unwavering loyalty gave Tom a sense of security he hadn't realized he was missing. Max was more than a dog, he was his guardian, his strength. But the peace, though welcome, felt different here. The house sat on the edge of a small, quiet neighborhood, surrounded by nothing but trees and open fields. At first, it seemed like a perfect retreat, but Tom couldn't shake the sense that something wasn't right. The air here was heavy, thick with an unease that seemed to linger in the corners of the yard. The stillness at night felt too quiet. No city noise, no traffic, no bustle. Just the chirp of crickets and the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. It should have been comforting, but it wasn't. There was something almost unnatural about it. It started slowly at first. Max, always curious, would wander the yard every night, sniffing at the earth with intense concentration. Then one night he began to dig. A few pawfuls of dirt at first, then more. Furiously, restlessly, his paws seemed to move faster than usual, and he barked low, deep barks, as if warning something away. Tom stood in the doorway, watching the dog's frantic movements. Max had always been instinctual, but this was different. Every night, the same ritual, the same spot near the old oak tree. Max seemed obsessed with it, like he was trying to uncover something hidden deep beneath the surface. What was it? Tom couldn't understand. At first, Tom thought nothing of it. Dogs, he reasoned, sometimes just dig for no reason. Maybe it was an old instinct, the need to bury something or find a cool spot in the ground. Max had always been a curious dog, so Tom brushed it off. He focused on settling in, unpacking boxes, making the house a home. Surely it was just a phase. Max would get over it. But the nightly digging continued. Tom's thoughts swirled around his new life. There was so much to do, so much to fix. But in the back of his mind, Max's strange behavior lingered. But then, one night, Tom woke to the sound of desperate barking, sharper and more urgent than ever. He rushed to the door, heart pounding. Max was digging frantically, dirt flying into the air, eyes wide and wild. "Max, what is it?" Tom whispered, fear creeping into his voice. Max stopped for a moment, looking up at him with a gaze that seemed to plead. The dog's fur was matted with dirt, his body tense with a quiet desperation. For a brief moment, Tom wondered if he was overthinking it. But the unease in the air couldn't be ignored. Max wasn't just digging for fun. There was something beneath the surface, something important, something hidden. And for the first time, Tom wondered if they had come here to escape the city, or if something was calling them to this very place. Max had always been a restless dog, but tonight was different. Tom had just settled into bed when he heard the sharp, urgent barks slicing through the stillness of the night. His heart pounded in his chest. Max was at it again, digging. But there was no calm rhythm this time, no casual pawing at the dirt. Max's movements were frantic. His claws scraped at the earth with a desperation that unsettled Tom. Tom hesitated for only a moment before throwing off the covers and rushing outside. The night was quiet around him, but Max's barks echoed through the yard. The dog's fur was matted with dirt, his eyes wide, reflecting a fear Tom couldn't place. "Max, what is it?" Tom whispered, his voice trembling with unease. But Max only dug faster, his body tense, as if the very earth beneath him was hiding something he could not escape. Tom crouched beside Max, who now pawed at the dirt with frantic speed, as though trying to pull something from the depths of the earth. Reluctantly, Tom joined in. His hands met the cold, damp soil, and he shoveled it away, dirt spilling between his fingers. Then his hand brushed against something hard. A metallic clang rang out, and his pulse quickened. What was this? He cleared more soil until a rusted, weathered box emerged. Its edges were jagged, its surface covered in dirt and grime. Max's eyes never left it, his growls low and steady, warning Tom to be cautious. With a deep breath, Tom carefully pried the box open. The air seemed to hold its breath as he lifted the lid. Inside was a collection of yellowed photographs and strange trinkets, small, tarnished items that felt out of place. Each object was a symbol of something long forgotten, a connection to a past that neither Tom nor Max could yet understand. The photographs were unsettling. Faces Tom didn't recognize stared back at him, some half-buried in shadows, others frozen in expressions of fear. Each image seemed to carry a story, but it wasn't one Tom was ready to hear. Alongside the photographs were strange objects. A silver locket, a broken watch, and a ring with a symbol Tom couldn't decipher. Each item seemed to whisper a secret, a memory from the past. But the more Tom stared at them, the more the air around him felt thick with a tension he couldn't shake. Max growled softly, as though sensing something in the air. Tom closed the box quickly, his hands trembling. The weight of the discovery felt heavy, and a chill ran down his spine. He could no longer dismiss Max's behavior. This wasn't just a strange instinct. Max had led him to something dark, something buried for a reason. The next day, Tom couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. The air was thick with the presence of something unseen, and Max stayed close to him, never leaving his side. Driven by the nagging fear that he had uncovered something far bigger than he realized, Tom went to the local library. There, he pored over old records and town histories, searching for anything that could explain the mystery of the box. It didn't take long for him to find what he feared. The house, it seemed, had a dark past. Decades ago, there had been rumors of disappearances in the area. People had come and gone, and some were never seen again. But the strangest part? The house itself had been tied to these stories. A chill washed over Tom as he read about the tragic events that had occurred right under his feet. Could the house be cursed? Had Max known this all along? The thought unsettled him to his core, but he couldn't turn back now. The past was calling, and Max had led him right to it. As Tom delved deeper into the history, Max's behavior grew more erratic. The dog's once playful demeanor had been replaced by a constant vigilance. He paced the house, his eyes darting from corner to corner, ears always perked. Tom noticed it first when he tried to walk to the yard. Max blocked the door, growling low in his throat, his body tense. It wasn't like Max to act like this, especially not around Tom. "Max, what's wrong?" Tom asked, but the dog only stared at him, his gaze unwavering. There was no friendly wag of the tail now. Max was on edge, his protective instincts fully activated. Something was here, something Max could sense but Tom could not. The dog's heightened senses, his loyalty, and the depth of his bond with Tom were more than just comfort now. They were his shield. Max would do anything to protect him. But from what? The strange occurrences didn't stop there. That night, Tom lay in bed, unable to sleep. His thoughts swirled around the box, the photographs, the strange items. Then came the whispers. At first, it was faint, a soft murmur, like voices carried on the wind. But as the hours ticked on, the whispers grew louder, almost like they were coming from inside the walls. Tom's heart raced. He strained to listen. Was it his mind playing tricks on him? Or was there something in the house, something alive? Max stood at the edge of the room, ears flat, growling softly. His eyes were locked on the walls, his posture rigid. Tom's breath caught in his throat. The sounds were real. They were happening, and Max had heard them first. In that moment, Tom realized that the house was more than just a place. It was a living thing, one that held its secrets deep within its foundation. And those secrets were coming to life. The tension between Tom and the house, between Tom and the mystery, reached a breaking point. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow that flickered across the walls, seemed to push him further into doubt. Was he imagining things? Or was Max's unease justified? Tom felt the walls closing in. He wanted to leave, to run away from the house, from the mystery. But Max would never let him. The dog was by his side always. Max's presence was his rock, his shield. As the unease and fear grew, Tom turned to Max, the one constant in his life. In that moment, he knew he wasn't alone. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. Max's loyalty was unwavering, and Tom realized that his bond with the dog was stronger than any fear, any doubt. Together, they would fight what lurked in the shadows, no matter what it took. Max had been digging for days, each time more frantic than the last. Tom, still struggling to understand what had driven the dog to such extremes, watched in silence. But today, something was different. Max's paws flew faster, the dirt flying behind him in chaotic spurts. His barks were sharp, urgent. Tom could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. "Max, what is it?" Tom muttered under his breath, but Max was beyond words now. His claws scraped at the earth with a determination that spoke volumes. Tom kneeled beside him and began to dig, the rhythm of his hands synchronized with Max's frantic pacing. Finally, after what seemed like hours, Tom's fingers brushed against something hard, something too smooth to be a rock. He cleared more dirt, and there it was, a rusted metal door, half buried, hidden from view for who knows how long. Max's growls grew louder, his gaze fixed on the door, as if he knew what lay behind it. Tom's heart raced. This was the moment. Whatever had been buried here was finally coming to light. With trembling hands, Tom worked to clear away the remaining soil and rust until the door was fully exposed. A deep creaking sound filled the air as he pulled it open. A rush of cold air spilled out from the chamber beneath. Max whined, his ears flattened against his head, but he did not move. Tom hesitated, but the pull of curiosity was too strong. He stepped down into the darkness, guided only by the dim light from the surface. The ground beneath him felt slick, damp, as though the earth itself had absorbed the secrets it held. At the bottom, Tom's eyes adjusted to the faint light. What he saw chilled him to his bones. Old wooden crates, a bed of dried leaves, and scattered remnants of things long abandoned. But the most unsettling part was the walls, covered in faded photographs, just like the ones Max had led him to before. Faces stared back at him, and as Tom's eyes moved across the images, a sickening realization hit him. These were people he didn't recognize, yet the stories seemed so familiar. They were connected to the house's dark history. Something unspeakable had happened here, and the photographs, faded, torn, were all that remained of a hidden, forgotten crime. Tom's heart thudded in his chest. He turned to Max, who had not followed him into the chamber. The dog stood at the top of the stairs, his body rigid, his eyes wide with fear. The protective growls had stopped. Now, Max simply stared into the darkness below, his head low. Tom's mind raced. It had been Max's digging, Max's strange behavior, that had brought him here. Max had knew more than Tom ever could. "I should have listened to you," Tom muttered, his voice barely a whisper. Max's ears twitched at the sound, but he didn't take his eyes off the opening below. The dog had been warning him all along. Whatever had happened here was not something Tom was meant to uncover. But now it was too late. The danger wasn't just in the past. It was still alive, waiting. Suddenly, the air shifted. A faint whisper seemed to rise from the chamber, like a breeze through the trees, though no wind blew. The walls of the chamber creaked, and a shadow moved. A dark figure, indistinct, standing at the far end of the room. Tom froze, his breath caught in his throat. The figure was tall, thin, and barely visible, like a ripple in the air itself. It was hard to tell if it was a person, a spirit, or something else entirely. But the message was clear. "You shouldn't be here," the figure whispered, its voice low and cold. "Leave. Now." Tom's stomach turned. His hands trembled as he reached for Max, who had started to back away, his fur bristling. The dog's growls were softer now, more cautious. Max knew this thing. He could feel its presence, knew it wasn't meant to be in the world of the living. But Tom was rooted to the spot. Something deep inside him told him to run, to escape, but his feet were frozen. The figure's eyes, if it had eyes, burned with an unspoken threat. A warning. Max stepped forward, his body low to the ground, his teeth bared. He was shaking, but his stance was unwavering. He didn't know what this figure was, but he knew it was not meant to harm Tom. Max, always the protector, would not stand idly by. The figure seemed to shimmer, its presence becoming more defined. "Leave. You have no place here," it hissed, but Max didn't budge. Max charged, his body a blur of motion. He lunged at the figure, his teeth snapping, his growls louder now, full of desperation and fury. The air crackled, and the figure shrieked, a sound like metal scraping across stone. Max, undeterred, pressed forward, his courage fueling every movement. Tom couldn't believe what he was seeing. His heart surged with pride for Max. This wasn't just a dog. This was a guardian, a protector, a friend. Max had faced countless dangers, but this felt different. The shadows closed in, but Max stood his ground, a true defender in the face of the unknown. The figure seemed to flicker, like a dying candle, the shadows weakening under Max's relentless charge. But then, something changed. The ground beneath Tom's feet began to tremble. The walls groaned, and the chamber felt alive. Alive in a way that was both terrifying and real. Max backed away, still growling, his body tensed, ready to protect. Tom grabbed the dog's collar, urging him toward the stairs. They had to leave. The chamber seemed to shrink around them. The figure's whispers grew louder, more frantic, as if the very air itself was fighting to keep them in the darkness. But Max was resolute. He tugged at Tom's side, pulling him toward the entrance. Tom's heart raced. With one final push, Max leapt toward the stairs, pulling Tom with him. The air behind them surged, like the breath of something ancient, but they made it out. The door slammed shut behind them, and for a moment, there was silence. They were free, but Tom knew this wasn't over. The house, the past, the danger, it was still there. But Max had saved him, and in that moment, Tom knew they would face whatever came next, together. The world seemed peaceful now, quiet and still, as if the darkness of the past had finally been pushed away. Tom sat on the porch, his hands resting on his knees, and Max sat beside him, his head gently resting on Tom's lap. The dog's fur was soft under Tom's fingers, and as he stroked it, he could feel the steady rhythm of Max's breathing. The bond between them had always been strong, but now, it was something deeper, something Tom couldn't fully explain. Max had been through it all with him, from the first time he dug at the yard, barking frantically, to the countless nights spent in darkness. Unsure of what was happening, Max had never once wavered. His loyalty was unwavering, and now, Tom could feel that loyalty in every inch of Max's body as he lay at his feet, calm but ever watchful. Tom leaned back, staring at the sky as the first light of dawn touched the edges of the trees. The shadows of the past seemed to fade, but the memories were still fresh in his mind. How close he had come to losing himself, losing his mind to the terror that had gripped him when they first uncovered the mystery. But through it all, Max had been there, silent, strong, a rock Tom could rely on. Tom gently scratched behind Max's ears, and the dog's tail thumped softly against the porch. He felt a lump in his throat. This was it. The calm before the storm had passed, and the storm itself was no longer a threat. Together, they had survived, and the bond between them had grown stronger than ever. Max wasn't just a dog anymore. He was Tom's protector, his friend, his constant companion. Tom knew that no matter what happened, no matter what challenges lay ahead, Max would always be there for him. The house, once a place of fear and uncertainty, stood before them now, quiet in the morning light. Tom looked at it with a new perspective. The fear that once gripped him seemed distant, almost foreign. What had once been a home filled with dread, with shadows and secrets, was now a place that symbolized resilience. There had been a time when Tom had thought of leaving, when the weight of the past seemed too heavy to bear. But now, standing in front of the house, he felt a sense of pride. This was the place where everything had changed, where he had been forced to confront the darkness within and around him. It was the place that had tested his courage, his strength, and his ability to trust. And it was the place that had healed him. Max, ever faithful, stood beside him. The dog's posture was relaxed now, no longer alert or on edge. The danger had passed, and they had both come through it stronger. Tom took a deep breath, looking at the house one last time as a place of fear, and nodded. He knew now that this house wasn't a symbol of the past. It was a symbol of everything they had overcome. With Max at his side, Tom stepped forward. The decision to stay had been made. It was time to rebuild. Time to let go of the shadows that once haunted this place. Together, Tom and Max would create something new. Something that would stand as a testament to their survival, their courage, and their bond. Later that day, Tom and Max made their way to the authorities. In Tom's hands were the photographs and strange items that Max had uncovered. Items that had once been part of a dark history, now returned to their rightful place. As they walked into the sheriff's office, Tom felt a strange mixture of relief and unease. The truth had been revealed, and now there was no turning back. The sheriff took the items from Tom's hands with a solemn nod. He didn't ask for details. The items spoke for themselves. Tom could see the weight of the discovery in the sheriff's eyes. This was the key to closing an old chapter, a chapter that had remained locked away for far too long. With the items handed over, Tom felt a sense of peace wash over him. The mystery was no longer his to solve. The past would be handled by those who could bring it to light, those who could right the wrongs of long ago. But for Tom, his part in this was done. He had uncovered the truth, faced the fear, and come out on the other side. Max stood by his side, his eyes watching the proceedings with quiet understanding. The dog had known all along what was at stake. And now, it seemed, Max had his own sense of closure. He had helped Tom face his demons, helped him confront the past, and in doing so, had brought justice for those lost in the darkness. As they left the sheriff's office, Tom's steps were lighter. He could feel the weight of the past lifting from his shoulders. Max trotted beside him, his tail wagging, as if to say that everything was going to be okay now. As they walked back home, Tom thought about everything that had happened, how much he had learned, how much he had grown. And he knew, deep down, that none of it would have been possible without Max. Max had been more than a dog. He had been a teacher, a constant presence in the most terrifying of moments. Through Max's unwavering loyalty, Tom had learned what it truly meant to trust. Trust wasn't just about relying on someone to be there when things got tough. It was about believing in them, even when everything seemed to be falling apart. Tom looked at Max, his heart swelling with emotion. The dog had been there for him every step of the way. He had led Tom to the truth, guided him through the darkness, and helped him face the hardest challenges of his life. But it wasn't just about the mystery they had uncovered. It was about how Max had changed Tom as a person. How, through his loyalty and courage, Max had helped Tom see the world in a different way. Max had shown him the power of love, the power of connection. He had reminded Tom of what it meant to trust, to care, and to fight for what was right. And Tom knew, without a doubt, that the bond between them would only grow stronger with time. Max had helped him become a better man, a braver man. And for that, Tom would be forever grateful. Tom and Max stood at the edge of the yard, gazing out into the vast, open world. The darkness of the past was behind them, but ahead, there was hope. Hope for a future filled with possibilities. The house behind them was a symbol of everything they had overcome. It no longer felt like a prison. It was their home, a place where they had faced their fears, found their courage, and emerged stronger. They had survived the darkness, and now, together, they would walk into the light. Tom took a deep breath and looked down at Max, who was wagging his tail, ready for whatever came next. There was a glint of mischief in his eyes, as if to say, "Let's see what the future holds." And Tom smiled, knowing that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. They had made it through the worst, and now it was time to move forward, step by step, with hope in their hearts and the bond of trust unbreakable. Whatever the future held, Tom knew he and Max were ready. Together, they had conquered the darkness, and now they would embrace the light. Tom smiled down at Max. "We've made it, old friend," he whispered. "And whatever comes next, we'll face it together." With that, they turned away from the yard and walked into the future, side by side, ready for the new journey that awaited them. If you enjoyed Tom and Max's incredible journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heartwarming tales of courage, loyalty, and survival. Join us next time for another emotional adventure, where animals teach us the true meaning of strength and the bond that unites us all.